Hello everybody. So today I'm going to be doing I hope a fun little project. I'm going to be working with air dry clay and see if I can turn this book that I got at Goodwill into a Hocus Pocus book. I was so excited that I found this one that actually said Ma's Spell Book. It's a Disney show, but it actually does have, you know, some cute little things in it. I thought was super fun. So I'm going to turn the outside of this into a Hocus Pocus book. Now it's not as thick as the Hocus Pocus book, but I think we can still do something creative and fun with it. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set the book aside. I am going to be decoupaging tissue paper onto it to make it look like skin. And we will do that in a minute. I'm also going to use these eyes from the Dollar Tree and cut them in half so I can have an eye for my book. But first we're going to start with the air dry clay. And I want to make all the embellishments that go on the book so they can be drying while we are prepping it for the decoupage tissue paper and stuff. So I am not an expert at using air dry clay. I think I've only used it one other time. Let's see if I can just tear this open. So this is Nara air hardening clay. It says it's high quality. Actually, this one is a flesh color, which is fine. It doesn't matter what color you use. I've got some over there that's just a gray color. I'm just going to cut this open so I can get some out of it. So this is how it looks in here, and it really doesn't matter because we're going to be painting it some dark colors. So I am going to attempt to get this open and get some of this clay out. I honestly do not know how long I've had this clay. I think I've only had this particular package a few months, but okay, I got it open here. So I'm going to pull some out of this. I want to make a few snakes and some fingers and some stuff for the eye, an eyelid and stuff. It's very soft, which is nice. And like I said, I am not someone who has used this much before at all, so we'll see if I can make it work for myself. So this is my stone that I use when I am making polymer clay stuff. So I'm hoping that this can be similar to polymer clay. I'm going to need a pretty long snake. Actually, I'm going to need 3 snakes. So I'm just going to roll this out. And then I've got these little things that I get on they cover my paintbrush tips to protect them in shipping. And I've kept them. I have all different sizes. So I am going to, actually I'm going to start up here and put some like little scales on this fish. This not scales, but try and make it look a little textured like snake skin. Turn it this way, it might be easier. So I'm just going to tap the one side of it. I'm not using the whole edge of this all the way down. And try and give it a little snake-like texture. We want the texture to be there when it dries. So as we dry brush over this, it will look really cool. It's a little thick down here on the tail. I'm sure I've probably got it longer than I need it. Let's see. Alright, this one is going to go along the edge here. From here to here. So I can probably cut it off about there. And I'll cut it off here. And maybe shape a little skinny, a little bit skinnier tail coming off of it. And get a little bit more of that on there. Okay, and I'm going to set this one aside. I'm going to make sure it's going to fit on my book. It's going to go on my book right here. Okay, looks like it's going to fit good, so first let me give him some eyes. Some little snake eyes. You want to square off his nose a little bit. And we can give him a little mouth. You can do as little or as much detail on this as you want to. I just really want to make sure here is good with the head. Alright, so I'm going to set this one aside to dry. That one is good. Okay, we're going to make a couple more snakes. And let me take this, because this might be enough here, what I've got here. I'll just go ahead and add this into it since we have to make 2 more snakes. Let's make some fingers that go on the side. And the book's not super thick, so I don't have to have super thick fingers. These are going to be pretty little fingers here. We're just going to make the tips of fingers. Make some fingernails, kind of looking fingernails. I don't think it's going to be big enough to make some little knuckle lines. Let's see how big these need to be. I don't want them to go past. So these are going to be just some fingertips, I think. I want the book to be able to still open. So mark where I need to cut it. Okay, so there's one, and I'm going to make 4 more, so we have 5 fingers. Alright, I've got my 5 done. They're all completely different, but that's fine. We're going to set them over to dry. And then we need to make an eyelid. So let's take one of these. See if I can safely cut this in half. Oh, that's tough. Much tougher than I thought it was going to be. Okay, I finally got a hole poked in this. Every video I have ever watched on cutting these eyes from the Dollar Tree, they show it being so easy. Well, that is not true, because this is much harder plastic than I expected it to be. And so I had to get a big hole in there in order to even get it to start. Now I'm trying to cut as close to that seam line as I can. Goodness gracious, that was excruciatingly difficult. Just so you know, all those videos that show it being so easy, it's not. Okay, I want to make an eyelid here. Cover that clay up so it will not dry on me. This already is starting to dry a little bit. That's the upper eyelid. Remove this excess off the back. I'm going to allow it to dry on the eye so that it can have the shape that I want it to have. If I take it off, it's going to stretch it out. Okay, I do want to give it a lower eyelid as well. And then this is all the stuff we'll need for the clay. Everything else will be well, we might put some clay on the book after we get the paper mache on it. I'll try not to push against this one up here, but it's very difficult. Okay, upper and lower eyelids. Sort of. Best we could do here. Okay, set that aside to dry. And then we're going to put the clay away. And wrap it up really good. And then we're going to work on the book. Okay, so here's all of our pieces. Your snakes will be the length they need to be based on the book that you are using. Okay, now we're going to work on prepping the book here, and I want to open it up and lay it like this because I want to apply some paint onto it first to kind of cover up all this bright pink stuff. So I'm just going to use some gray paint. So I'm just going to apply a coat of gray paint to this book, mostly to cover up the pink stuff, anything that might not, cover well with our paint. This book actually happens to be pretty close to the color. Oh, that's a little gouge in the book right there. Pretty close to the color of, what we're going to be making it, and that's kind of a metallic gold stuff on this front cover. So you don't really have to be too perfect about this. You just, if your book has bright colors, you want to try and cover up some of that stuff, especially metallic stuff. Okay, so I'll let this dry and see if any of that pink or those brighter colors are showing through, and maybe apply a second coat if I need to. This won't take too long to dry. I definitely want to cover up that tag thing. Just a quick little coat of some type of a light gray. You can mix black and white and get a nice gray. Let it dry, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, I think my book is dry enough for me to start decoupaging the tissue paper on. Now I'm going to use this one that is for napkin because, well, mostly it's my favorite decoupage medium. But it's a thin enough consistency that it goes on super easy on things like this. All right, so let's get a coat of decoupage on our book. Do your edges as well. Try to stay off of your pages if you can. So if you need to, lift this up, get along the edges. And then a nice coat on here. Lift this one up so I can get the edges. If you are concerned that when you lay it back down it's going to stick to pages, then get some plastic bag or something and put between your book cover and your pages. Run your hand down along the edges and see if anything came over the edge. Okay, you want a piece of tissue paper that's bigger than the book. We're going to crumple it up open it back up. This is going to give us extra texture when we put it onto the book. So we have a nice wrinkled piece of tissue paper. It doesn't matter if it has tears or anything on it. We'll be cutting off the excess. I want to make sure I get that binding part. Make sure I get in that groove so that I can tell where it's at. And then I'm just going to smooth this out. Go along the edges. I think I'm just going to apply two pieces of tissue paper at one time. We're going to apply a coat of decoupage on top of this. This is going to help stick it down. We'll cut off all that excess here in a minute. You can let it dry and then cut it off. Generally that's a little bit easier. Use a cutting blade and cut it off, and you know, anything that's kind of scraggly and loose you can wad up another piece, shake it out, put it on. Make sure you do your seam down the back first. Make sure it gets wrinkled. We want wrinkles. Now if you want, you can try and make the wrinkles for the seams that you're going to put in here. Or you can come back when this is dry and decoupage more on there. I want more wrinkle stuff in there. Okay, let's get some decoupage on top of this so we can get it to stick. I don't think I had enough underneath it. So lift up if you don't have enough. If it's not sticking, put some underneath it. Over here it's not sticking. You don't have to be careful about the edges on the second layer because your first layer is protecting the book pages. Alright, let's get a coat on top of this. It has some nice wrinkly skin on here. Skin texture, I guess. Create an old book. You can also take some water and dampen the tissue paper. I'll show you how to do that if you want to remove the tissue paper like right now. Air bubble in there. Let's get that out. Okay, I rinsed my brush out, tried to get the adhesive out of it. And then we're just going to dampen along here. This is going to get the excess off. And then you can just pull that away. If it pulls all the way up to the book, no problem. So just go all the way around your book. You can wait till it dries and just cut it off if you want, or just get it wet like this and pull it away. I'm going to pull it away, and then I will go and adjust the edges. I'm going to save some of this that I'm pulling away because I want to use it to create some stitching areas on the book. So save that, and then pull off anything that you don't want on the edges. You just have to be careful when it's wet that you don't pull it off of the book itself. It's okay if it takes a tiny little bit off. We just don't want a lot. Right there, it took just a little bit off. So I'm kind of pulling straight down. If my tissue paper is not giving easily, it's not wet enough. So just lift it up, and you should be able to just pull straight down and remove that because we dampened it with quite a bit of water. Be careful touching your book because it could stick to you, and then you could have your paper could lift in those places. Stuck to me. Okay, I'm going to take my damp brush and see if there's any more that I can get off of here. Kind of brush the edges down so they're not sticking up anywhere. This is just a damp brush. It doesn't have any glue in it. It's just water. But some here I can pull off. And then take my brush and I'll just tap that down to that edge. Okay, that looks pretty good. Take these smaller pieces that I tore off and throw them in the trash. And now with the stuff that you have left over here, you can take it and create some of the puffed up stitch lines. If you want to use this, you can. And I'm just going to kind of create them wherever. I don't know exactly where my stitching will be, but I'm going to try and put some on here. I'm just kind of wadding it up in a raised like way. Without my elements being on here, I'm just guessing where this needs to go. I'm going to go ahead and apply some decoupage to hold that on there. This is just on the front cover. Another piece here. We know we're going to have the eye in here somewhere. So I do want to have some kind of coming to that eye. And I'll probably have some coming up around where this snake is. I don't know how far that snake's going to come down, so I'll just go like that and tear it off there. And we'll have a couple. I'll narrow this when I put my glue on there. And we'll have a little bit of it coming over here towards my snake. And if it doesn't go all the way, that's okay. piece of knot off of there. Okay, then I want a few more coming off of here, like down through here. My decoupage medium on here is not dry, so it's holding it, you know, where I'm wanting to put it. So, and then let's just have one coming up this way. Okay. Let's try and glue those all down. That's going to give us a start for our, shrink this one down a little bit. You know, it's just a guesstimate here. Narrow that because I want it to be a little bit narrower. Narrow this one. I think this one has got too much paper. Don't worry if you put tears in anything. Okay, tears are fine. Okay, let's just make sure we got enough glue on here to glue these areas down well. Especially right there, that's pretty thick. Okay. Let me wipe my hands off. I'm going to put this to dry. Now I want the this area to not be in a bind. So I'm going to run my brush along there to really create that seam on the front and the back. And then I'm going to set this over another book. So I'm going to set it behind me on my counter to dry, but I'm going to take this book and rest this book over it and let it dry. That'll keep the back from touching the pages and keep my my crease in my edges back here. Okay? All right, let's let it dry. All right, let's get all of our pieces glued on here. They have dried completely. I'm going to do some E6000 in a couple of places and do the rest with some hot glue. And the snake goes along the spine here. Press it on. Okay, corner snakes. All right, let's get this painted. Paint everything in with red.